The hater is an honest man. And the hater, more importantly than being honest, is a real man. So when the hater is incorrect about something, the hater will promptly admit it, as should everyone else. In my last video about CM Punk, I made some statements that were incorrect and was promptly corrected by some of you. Now, while I admit that I made the mistakes that I did, saying that CM Punk didn't choke, what's his face? Jungle Boy Jack Perry, right? He put him in a headlock. That's effectively the same thing. I'm not going to be here splitting hairs whether it's a choke or it's a headlock. That doesn't matter. He could call it a choke. Maybe it was, right? But that's about all the mistakes that I made, you know? Fundamentally, the point remains, cucks, and the point is this. In his interview with Helwani, CM Punk made it seem as if Jack Perry was the aggressor and he was just standing there doing nothing, right? He went up to Jack Perry politely, according to CM Punk, and then afterwards CM Punk says, I can't let you get too close. He just quotes Chael Sonnen. Can't let you get too close, which is completely different because in this case, Jungle Boy didn't get too close. CM Punk got too close to him, and then Jungle Boy said some words, and CM Punk shoved him and put him in a headlock, right? So, insofar as the premise of everything that I said goes, some of the premises were wrong, I will admit, right? But the conclusion remains the same, and that is that CM Punk is the instigator here, and fundamentally, at the end of the day, a lot of people have an issue with like, well, why didn't Jack Perry just listen? Why the fuck should he? Why in the blue hell is Jack Perry going to listen to some 50-year-old nobody called CM Punk who's just there for a paycheck, as was proven, right? CM Punk didn't do anything for this company. He came there, he got a paycheck, he pulled a Cody Rhodes, right? He got a paycheck, he got a boost, he put himself over again, and then he went back to the big leagues where he got injured and did absolutely nothing, and it's been like 7 months. But that's neither here nor there. The facts are what the facts are, right? CM Punk is the aggressor, and that's exactly why AEW showed the footage, right? They showed the footage specifically to point out that what CM Punk said is disingenuous. Maybe it's not a complete lie, right? Because that's the kind of person CM Punk is. He operates in the gray area, right? He's like, tell me where the lies are. Well, fine. You can stretch the argument and say CM Punk technically didn't lie. But the truth is, the presentation of it, the implication of it was such that CM Punk was not in the wrong and all he did was want to talk to Jack Perry. At the end of the day, CM Punk, for no reason whatsoever, wanted to hold Jack Perry accountable. And Jack Perry said, do something about it. Let's just assume that that's true. And then CM Punk, quote unquote, did something about it, right? But as he said, oh, can't let you get too close. Jack Perry didn't threaten him, right? Jack Perry didn't expect to be shoved and headlocked, right? And this once again proved that CM Punk is an ineffective fighter because he didn't do anything, right? And this idea, dude, I could kill you based on what? You know what I'm saying? Based on what? His two shit performances in the UFC? Jack Perry could have done the same thing. Jack Perry also could have gotten his ass beat for 15 minutes and gotten tapped out by Mickey Gall in like 1 minute and a half, right? Anyone could have done that. Anyone would have done the same, right? CM Punk did not show any kind of fighting aptitude during either of his fights, right? That's the takeaway here. He thinks he's a fighter, he's not, right? And that's kind of the point. Like when I say like, you know, sometimes I exaggerate. I'll be like, I'll beat this guy's ass or whatever, right? And chances are, like for example, like obviously, if the hater were to fight Gunther, I'm pretty sure Gunther would beat my ass. I think I'd have a chance, but I'm pretty sure he'd win because he's much bigger than me, right? But CM Punk, I have no doubt that I would whoop his ass. So anyways, the point being here that while I was wrong about some things and I admit it, take accountability for it, the fact is that my point still stands. Cucks. Now let's move on to the video at hand, right? The video at hand has to do with mostly Cody Rhodes, a little bit of CM Punk, and also some Gunther, right? These three guys that are supposed to be big deals, right? At least in this bullshit new era that we're supposed to believe in, don't show up and they don't wrestle, right? You know who did show up on the Raw after WrestleMania? John Cena, right? He showed up, but Cody Rhodes couldn't, right? I mean, of course he was there, but he didn't wrestle, right? He didn't entertain the people. He just cut the same promo he's been cutting for like, you know, a year now. The only difference is instead of saying, I'm going to win the title, he said, I won the title. That's the only difference, right? The promo is the same thing. Like, look at me now is basically the promo that Cody Rhodes cuts every time, right? Gunther hasn't been seen for weeks, right? Which is really stupid because it's like, it really shows that he doesn't care about the Intercontinental title. He's letting other people wrestle and Sami Zayn is getting the boost, right? Whatever, it is what it is. I'm sure he'll come back at some point. Maybe lose to Sami Zayn again. I don't know. I don't quite really care. But the point is, they're not showing up, right? The people that are showing up are the real workhorses, the ones that never get the credit, right? In the CM Punk pipe bomb promo, he talked about some workhorses, and some of them were correct. Like, you know, Tyson Kidd is a great example. Tyson Kidd, whether you like him or hate him, I mean, he is a guy who only had bangs, and he called himself the Crown Prince of NXT or whatever it was. But at the end of the day, Tyson Kidd was there in and out, right? He was a presence that you felt. He was always there. Kind of like during the pandemic years, where it seemed like every time you turn on Raw, it was like Humberto Carrillo versus like Brendan Vink. You know what I mean? These guys were there, right? They were wrestling during the very boring and very uneventful pandemic era, right? Even Orton was appearing, right? Other people weren't, right? I understand this is now the new flow of wrestling. The new flow of wrestling is such that we don't care anymore about what actually happens. We just care about what people say happens, right? So nobody really cares. Nobody really wants to see Cody Rhodes wrestle, right? Like, I'm not saying that I want to see him wrestle, but I just want to point out the hypocrisy, right? The truth is, they have completely dropped the ball with this run, right? And this is reflected in the poor viewership drop-off, right? Of course. The night after WrestleMania, everyone is excited because you don't know what's going to happen, right? It could be the debut of, Tama Tonga as it was on SmackDown, right? It could be the debut of fucking Jacob Fatu, who apparently is also signed. It could be The Rock could come out and challenge Cody Rhodes to a title for all we know. But once The Rock came out and said The Rock's going to be gone for a while, that's it. You might as well just turn the TV off, right? And eventually, a lot of people did, right? The Raw after Mania did 3.1 million, and immediately they just drop off 600,000. Now I know you're thinking, people watch wrestling in different ways. Do they? There's a show on FX called Shogun. I think like it got 7.5 million views across, Shogun, Hulu, and all these other streaming services, right? That it's on, right? So people are still watching, right? Just nobody watched Raw, Caitlin Clark, who I only learned about recently, who apparently is like the best female basketball player of all time, she was drafted. The draft, the women's draft, the WNBA draft got a 2.5 million. Raw got like 1.7 or something, right? Because it dropped off by 600,000, but it wasn't 3 million the whole time. It was 3 million for one segment. The average was like 1.7 million. The average of AW was like 0.7 million. So in other words, Caitlin Clark, right? Not playing basketball, just getting drafted, right? Caitlin Clark is a bigger draw than all of WWE and AW combined. That is the state of wrestling. There was a point, Cox, when Monday Night Football, right, which consistently draws in tens of millions, right? There was a point, and they've been doing this for years now, even though football can also be watched on YouTube, and football can also be watched, you can DVR it like everything else, right? You can watch the highlights. It's the same thing as wrestling in terms of how it's watched, right? If anything, wrestling is more, worthy of watching live because it's like, someone can cut a promo. You're not going to go watch like, 5-10-minute clips, right? But with football, you can just watch the highlights. You don't need to watch like the 5 times when someone threw like an incomplete, right? But despite this, Monday Night Football continues to grow and Monday Night Raw continues to stagnate, right? There was a point during the Attitude Era where Monday Night Football was legitimately worried about the reality that Raw was taking a significant share of the cool male demographic, the key demo, right? Men in like military age men, right? Military age men are attracted, it turns out, to cool stories, badasses, and hot women. So it's no surprise that when you replace the cool stories with no stories, you replace the badass men with a bunch of sissies, and you replace the hot women with a bunch of interchangeable mid-level women that nobody wants to see, right? With basically virtually zero sex appeal. Some of them are attractive. I'm not saying they're not attractive, but like for example, my friend keeps telling me how attractive Liv Morgan is. Yeah, but she has no sex appeal, right? She's just like this punk girl. Like there's no like Lita, for example, was like a punk girl, but she had a lot of sex appeal because she's far more attractive, number one. And two, you could see her thong like up her ass like every single time she wrestled. So people were like, oh, who's that? She's hot, right? And people tuned in. Now people don't. So that's where we've gone, right? And that's why it's inexcusable for people like Cody Rhodes, CM Punk, and Gunther to not show up. Not that they're going to make a big difference in the ratings, but once Raw moves to Netflix and they don't have to worry about the ratings anymore, things are going to get much worse. SmackDown is also going to get worse as a result. And what's going to happen then? I'll tell you what's going to happen then. The ratings of SmackDown are going to stagnate. The only thing that can save them would be like if Roman Reigns comes back, which I'm sure is going to happen, right? They're not going to put him on Netflix where, basically nobody's going to be watching. But the truth is what the truth is, right? Wrestling is on a huge decline, and what's made worse about this, in my opinion, is that it's one thing to be in a decline. Things go up, things go down. That which goes up must come down, right? And in some ways, that which goes down tends to eventually come up. But the problem is that even though things are going down, the presentation, the argument that's being made on TV by the Michael Coles and Triple H's is that things are just fine. We're in a boom period. No, we're not. 1.7 million viewership, right? Combined with, zero point 0.7, 700,000 viewership of AEW, when Caitlin Clark, right, draws 2.5 million. That's something to say, motherfucks. On that, and that's on Wednesdays, right? If you look at like Survivor, right? Survivor got more views than Caitlin Clark, WWE, and AEW in one episode. So there you have it, right? It's not that people aren't watching TV anymore. People just aren't watching wrestling anymore, right? And how could they? How could they when you tune in and all you see is like Jey Uso and Sami Zayn and you're like, whoa, I thought this was Raw. I didn't realize this was like the dark show or Sunday Night Heat where these people belong. But with that being said, that's all I gotta say today. Cucks.